I am no longer prepared to pass as white. I had a realization that with the Black Lives Matter movement and the rise of that, and also with the coming 100th birthday it would be of for my father if he was still alive, that I had to change something. If you came across me in the street, I'd just be another white man. You wouldn't know anything different. And in the area of England where I live, I've got the accent, I blend in totally. But I pass in the place where I live totally. But for decades, I would come into a meeting and I would be asked the question. I would introduce myself, give them my name, and then immediately it's clear that my name isn't English. And so at that point, there was that story in the news a couple of years ago, where are you really from? Where are your people from? And I knew those questions would then come, but I quickly shut that down by saying, my mum's English, but my dad is Dutch, because it's a Dutch name that they would hear. And that shut the conversation down. They could then put me in a box. They'd then start to forget about the fact that my mum's English, and then I'd just be this Dutchman in their heads just because I've got a Dutch name. But with the horrors that, sort of those individual incidents that led to the rise of Black Lives Matter, I began to realize that the battles my dad and his ancestors before that fought had not yet been won. And I had to change the way I dealt with those questions when I went into the room. So when I introduce myself and I say the name, for the last 3 or 4 years now, I have given the person who's asked, well, where are your family from? Where are you really from? The full truth. Because I've got nothing to hide. I've never hidden it, but I've never made an issue of it before. I just shut the conversation down and said I'm Dutch, because my dad is a Dutch national, but he was born in the Caribbean, in the Dutch Caribbean, in Suriname. And he did not pass as white, and he settled here in England after the Second World War, having fought the war from here, as many Caribbeans did. He suffered appalling racism in the Dutch military, and the fight goes on, it seems. And so I might pass as white, but my blood isn't totally white. And I always knew that my grandmother's grandmother was enslaved. And through DNA testing I now have the evidence in me of exactly how much she was 100% Black African. And in the Netherlands, slavery was only abolished 150 years ago. So my grandmother's grandmother lived through abolition, as did my great-grandmother. So the fight goes on. The wound is there in me to see this around, racism endemic around me on a daily basis. But I've got blood in this, and if you ask me where I'm from because of my foreign name, you're going to get the full truth now. I carry the experiences of all my ancestors with me, including those that were racialized as Black and all that went with that. I am the first generation to have the privilege that they would have liked. So if I was to try and sum this up, the two things are, the wounds that I still carry of what my grandmother and what my father experienced in terms of racism and what I saw in their lives. And the other word I'd say is blood. You look at me and you think I'm just another privileged white guy, but my blood's different to that.